coming back to bite us because we have a fragmented ecosystem that supports small businesses throughout the continent, which lacks benchmarking, which does not have produce best practice that supports practitioners in the ecosystem that really brings out the best for SMEs to support our economies throughout Africa. So it's biting us right now because in spite of the many interventions that many governments and other players in the economy are now looking at supporting in terms of supporting small businesses through this COVID-19 era, we really do not quite know the basis of this support because we don't have a very strong data and evidence basis to base our interventions.
Uh, is there a shortcut to this? Is there a shortcut to enable us leapfrog and be able to be at par and maybe collect the data that is needed for this as soon as possible?
I think there is no shortcut per se, but this is an incredible opportunity at this time to actually roll out some intensive data collection exercise through our economies to support and to understand what SMEs are doing. We need to understand what works and what doesn't work. We need to do that very rapidly because this is an opportunity for us to build enough evidence, enough data to allow us to actually strengthen and begin to build a very strong foundation for the post-COVID era. Because when the COVID era comes to an end, we need to be building our economies, and we build our economies through supporting small businesses. And if at that point we've collected enough data during this period, we would have a very good basis to actually develop interventions that work and begin to actually see results over the short term.
Sifiso, what you're talking about will lead in the long run to things like building infrastructure. But when you look at most of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, the informal sector outweighs the formal sector by a percentile of more than 60%. Now, with this, that means African countries have bigger challenges at hand. They need to create health services. Now, this is what's needed short term. Yeah, and one would look at investment in research and data as being a very long-term solution to this. Now, is it a pick and choose situation?
Unfortunately, yes. I think it's very difficult for decision makers at this point to say, do we save lives or focus on actually serving livelihoods? And I think that's a very difficult decision. But I think that it's a balanced approach that we need to have at this time, because we need to be building economies that are going to last through and beyond the COVID era. And therefore, it's very important for us to really be building the evidence and be investing resources in actually making sure that we have stable economies post-COVID. And we do that by making sure that we have a better understanding of how many SMEs are out there, in what sectors they're in, what do they do, what really makes them tick, what interventions actually work. We can't do this if we don't build an evidence base that allows us to build stronger and better economies that will support sustainable livelihoods beyond COVID-19.
How do we ensure, what are the practicalities in making sure that we build those systems that are going to support SMEs, and where do we start from?
I think there are many ways of doing this. Certainly, Catalyst for Growth is in this very place where we've been working for the last 5 years in quite a number of African countries to collect data, to encourage the practice of evidence-based in terms of decision making, both in terms of program design, but also in terms of policy making. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to start having conversations, of course, with many other players who are doing similar things in the ecosystem throughout the continent, to begin to say, how do we actually help those that are working in this space to actually begin to collect data? We have a platform that actually facilitates the collection of data with various players that are working directly with SMEs. And I think this is an incredible opportunity for ecosystem players, because this is not a time for one player to actually act alone. This is an opportunity for various players in the ecosystem that supports economies that are driven by small businesses to actually come together and work together and play their respective parts. And we are, as Catalyst for Growth, I think, very excited to make a contribution in terms of data collection and evidence-based decision making, so that at the end of COVID, we are in a stronger position as a continent, individual countries, to actually have robust economies based on growing and sustainable SMMEs.
Now, experts have previously come out to say that a data-driven future would be about 20 years from now for Africa, but you seem to think it's even closer than that. Are you still with that suggestion that COVID-19 has changed that forever and a data-driven future is now?
I think COVID-19 has done many things. Disruption is the common term that is being used throughout many sectors of the economy. Our social lives, our economic lives, our working lives have all been disrupted. And I think that disruption, disruptive as it is, also gives us a great opportunity to actually leapfrog certain developments. And I think this is a great opportunity to actually use this opportunity to actually bring developments much faster. And I think this is an opportunity for us to do the same in this particular space, to instead of expecting something that's going to be driving our economies. Data is already an engine for growth in many sectors of the economy, and there's an opportunity for us to actually make it real for small business and for developing economies in small business, and this is an opportunity during this time.